So, yes, back into the fray again. From Disney University, I took several weeks off after I felt strong enough to face the ESL industry's hiring and firing procedures again. In the meantime, I had unexpectedly had to fly to Belfast just to say goodbye to my ailing brother who was on his deathbed. But my other sister-in-law had a different agenda regarding the purpose of my visit to Ireland. She saw it as an opportunity to lavish upon me a pearl of wisdom gleaned from her short career as a teacher before retiring at the age of 55, as they used to do in those good old days. Always the mistress of tact, and with perfect timing, my sister-in-law rightfully verbally lashed me the day before my brother died with, "Unemployed? Well, why don't you get off your backside then?" I could understand her. The frustration and the sense of shame she must have felt that a relative of hers was unemployed. I could understand that entirely. But I think this tirade was really about something else as well. I had done that unforgivable thing in Northern Ireland, calling on her without an appointment. Well, yes, you see, I hadn't been invited, and that is a very serious crime indeed in the eyes of some. Woe betide anyone who breaks this unwritten rule and visits someone without permission in Northern Ireland. In fact, I have it on good authority that people have been transported to Australia for this very offence in the recent past. What could I expect for doing such a rash, impulsive, and friendly thing as to call without phoning? Truth be known, I suspect I had the misfortune to visit her at the wrong time. Possibly after she'd had a rather poor round of golf. She was probably not feeling her best. It's quite understandable that she would want to criticize her lazy brother-in-law who was unemployed and wouldn't get off his backside. After this unpleasant encounter, I did feel down, but not completely out. But anyway, I decided to apply to an outfit in Adelaide on my return, which had a different clientele, that is, to teach refugees and migrants. I thought I was more or less qualified for this type of training. We don't call it teaching anymore because now we're business people. We use the business jargon, training. Well, I thought I was pretty qualified because I myself have migrated to Australia 3 times, twice from the outside, once from Ireland and once from Borneo. And I've also migrated within Australia from state to state. So surely this must qualify me to be a reasonable candidate. Anyway, I thought with my 35 years of experience teaching at that time, I thought I might have a chance, this job. So I sent my CV to this outfit, and after a reasonable response time of about 6 weeks, I got a reply from CJ. Now, the boss of the outfit, CJ, said he had a couple of part-time positions coming up that I might be interested in. Would I come in and speak to him? And by the way, would I bring my original qualifications just for this chat? Well, yes, of course, off to town on the train. It's only a 30-minute ride and $4.70. After the meeting, CJ said, "Well, would I come in for an interview?" Oh, I said to myself, I I thought that was the interview, but oh well, yeah, why not have another one? Sure, CJ, I said with enthusiasm. Subsequently, I emailed CJ to ask him about the format of the interview. And could I have a copy of the curriculum documents that were relevant and any assessment procedures? No, said CJ. Just bring yourself to the interview. Hmm. I went in anyway the next day, and I got an A4 piece of paper at the reception of this outfit, a flyer about their programs, what they call in the business community a flyer. Oh, well, that was all they had. They wouldn't give me any more information before the interview. I mean, we can't have candidates knowing what we do in this business before the interview, can we? What a bunch of amateurs. At the second interview, which was actually my third trip to this place by train, I was introduced to two others. One was easily distinguishable from CJ by her daringly low-cut cleavage, cleverly designed to distract any potential paedophile teachers from applying for the job. We'll call her LCC for low-cut cleavage. I was also introduced to someone else who looked Chinese and possibly was Chinese, but she turned out to be more Aussie than I was because she had an Aussie accent. That's what counts in Australia, the accent. If you don't have the accent, you're a bit sus. Both were about half my age, of course. Not that that's relevant to anybody else except me. CJ, anyway, started off the interview with, well, now, Don, what decided you to become a teacher? Easy, I thought to myself. And then maybe I made a mistake. I was just going to say idealism, but the devil intervened and tempted me. I said, misplaced idealism, with a chuckle. As CJ gurgled back something, and I went on at length about how I had been interested in being a teacher since I was 19 in Dublin, in Ireland. I think I recovered pretty well, but by then maybe the damage had been done. Many Australians lack a genuine sense of humour, so in retrospect, that was a risky answer. Misplaced idealism. Then LCC announced herself as the curriculum coordinator. Keeping my eyes firmly away from LCC, I listened with studied concentration to her question. Can you give me an example of how you have integrated a language function into your teaching in a vocational context? Well, I considered this briefly and wriggled around in my seat uncomfortably. Had she said vacation or vocation? I briefly considered talking about the past tense and, what did you do on your holidays before I realized it must have been the latter, the vocational, not vacation. Then I thought, but hasn't she read my CV? Perished the thought. Because if she had, she would have realized that I had taught in 14 schools and 2 universities in 9 different countries, even though it had mostly been academic teaching, I have to admit. But some of it was certainly vocational. So Why ask me that question then? I began to smell a rat. Was this just a setup? Political correctness, this interview. Interview for interview's sake and all that. Well, my eyes began to wander where they shouldn't. And then I said, well, no, actually, I haven't. All my teaching has been, most of it anyway, has been academic. Although I did say that the first 12 years of my career were as a science teacher, which involved teaching functional English in Africa, South America, and the Middle East to speakers of English as a second language in a scientific context. Totally irrelevant, of course. I went on, well, that's why I'm applying for this job. I want to do something different. I like the idea of teaching migrants and refugees something useful. Oh, I can never understand why anyone would want to apply for a job they had done before. But that seems to be what employers expect and want in Australia. Less trouble for them, of course. The Chinese Aussie then read out her question from her piece of paper. Reporting for assessment is very important in this business. Can you give an example of when you have had to report to a deadline? I thought to myself, are you serious? I've been a teacher for 35 years, a senior administrator and a principal for several years. If you don't report in time, you get sacked. I mumbled something about monthly tests in Borneo or some such twaddle. What a question. Well, LCC had another go. Can you give me an example of an assessment you have designed? Well, yes. At Disney University, I designed many presentations, discussion assessments, listening assessments, and debates. Of course, I had no real time to think about these answers. Why are the questions not provided before the interview so that the answers can be prepared? This is not Who Wants to Be a Millionaire we are playing here. It's not a game show or an exam. It's an exchange of information. An interview. Oh, what a bunch of amateurs. Well, thanks very much, Dom. The next stage is a demo lesson. I'll be in touch with you about that, said CJ cheerfully. No opportunity whatever for me to speak about what I can do in the interview or what I have done that might be relevant to the job. No, just an opportunity for a little power trip for CJ, LCC, and the Chinese female. Their time would have been better utilized teaching rather than wasting the company time on a power trip disguised as a job interview. Not so much as a thank you for taking the time or anything remotely like it. What a bunch of amateurs. On Thursday evening, I get an email from CJ saying that I should set up a meeting with the teacher of a class to do a demonstration lesson on the Wednesday of next week. I emailed the teacher immediately and suggested a meeting on the Friday. No, can't do it. Phoned him on the Friday, left a message on his voicemail twice, no response. Saturday, no. Sunday, no. CJ said he'd wanted my lesson plan on his desk on the day before the lesson, Tuesday. Finally, the teacher calls me. I go in to meet him on the train. So I went in and found the teacher, who was most cooperative, and we agreed on what I would do on Wednesday. No worries. I went home and spent the day preparing a super lesson. It was the second last day of a course, and I did a dictogloss reviewing a lot of the language points covered in that course, vocabulary, diagnostic testing, and consolidation of all the macro skills covered in the module. CJ came in at 11. Did you get my lesson plan? I said, yes, but only the dictogloss, not the plan. I pointed to the plan which he had in his hand. That's it, I said. Oh, said CJ. Oh, what an amateur. I smelled a rat. I smelled a setup. I really enjoyed the lesson, and so did the students. The teacher and CJ were both in the room for about an hour and a half. Under the circumstances, I gave one of the best lessons that I've ever done under observation. I know it was good. I went home confident and pleased with myself. CJ left the class and said he would call me later in the afternoon. He didn't. The next day, Friday, CJ phoned me and he waffled on and on. He said that the big boss had arrived that very day and they had decided to fill my position internally. He thought my lesson was very good, but he didn't think I showed enough enthusiasm for doing the reporting in the interview. Oh, sorry, CJ. I get it now. I was supposed to say, whoopee, lots of reporting to do. Bring it on. I really get off on reporting. CJ, if you didn't think I showed enough enthusiasm for the reporting at interview, why did you let me do the demo lesson? CJ said, we will now consider you for other posts, but in the meantime, you might wish to look for a job somewhere else. No thanks. No thanks at all for your 5 trips to town, or your time, or your free teaching, or your hours of preparation. No, not even one teeny-weeny little thank you. No, but have a good Easter, he said. I smelt a setup. At this stage of my career, I trust my sense of smell. Maybe I'm paranoid, but I'm often right. Thank you very much, CJ. Yes, I am angry now. All of the workplaces I have observed in Australia, and I've worked in 6, have had this third world management style. I wouldn't mind if they would admit it, but no, they're so goddamn pretentious about being efficient and, of course, generous to the migrants, to the immigrants, to the outsiders. At least in the third world, I know to expect inefficiency and that there will be a good dollop of corruption thrown in to spice it up. But what gets me about Australians is how sanctimonious they are, how they keep on going about how wonderfully efficient they are, and generous to migrants, and how fair-minded they are. The reality is they want overqualified migrants to wipe the bums of their children in childcare centres. They've got my overqualified wife doing it, and have had her doing it for years. And in fact, they would have been quite happy for me to wipe their bums as well, had I been prepared to do it. It's all talk, just talk and bullshit. As we say in Ireland, it's just blarney. The only people who can survive in these Australian language teaching workplaces that I have seen are the well-heeled, or those with a private income, those who don't really need the money to put butter and bread on the table, or who have spouses supporting them. You won't find these people in a union. Why would they need a union when they have a private income or a working spouse? But having a union and joining it is the only logical way to protect yourself in these places and still work with dignity. But most of these worthies who don't need a union are quite happy to enjoy the benefits of being in a union, the benefits for which the union has fought for, like holidays, weekends, and sick pay, and parental leave. If I can, I will leave Australia for the third world again. It may be much more frustrating and corrupt, but it is more dignified and less hypocritical in the end to live and work there. And besides, the people are a lot more generous. You don't have to make an appointment to see them. Yes.